Welcome, everybody. I'm Selena Rezvani, and you're joining Women and Work Culture. This is a live stream all about helping women rise at work. And today we're talking about communication. Not just any old kind of communication, though. We're talking about the empathetic kind, which can be really hard to get right. Our guest today is the fierce Sharon Steed. She is a fellow LinkedIn Learning instructor who teaches on this subject, and she's also a communication and inclusion expert. So happy to have you, Sharon. Welcome.
Hello, I'm so happy to be here and talk to you today, Selena.
Yay! And a big welcome to our community. We are so happy to learn right along with you from experts like Sharon. So drop us a note. Tell us where in the world you're joining from today so we can give you a proper shout out. I already see Tracy from Chicago, Anissa from Tampa Bay, Shar from UCLA. Welcome. As we go, if you have questions for Sharon, send them to us. Let us know what you're wondering, what your burning questions are about empathetic communication. So let me give you a little inside scoop on Sharon. She is a corporate empathy and communication consultant, as well as an international keynote speaker. She has spoken at companies on improving team communication and collaboration. She has spoken at tech conferences on vulnerability and how it's an asset. Talk about a reframe. She's given a TEDx talk on empowering insecurities. She's also an accomplished LinkedIn Learning instructor. Like I mentioned, she teaches on this very topic, and she's going to help us learn how to boost our collaboration today and be more effective, productive, and positive, most of all, communicators. So don't we all want to be better at that? Let's dive right in, Sharon. I have a question for you, which is, why is empathetic communication kind of a must-teach topic for you? Why were you drawn to this?
So all of this sort of came about for me because I'm a person who stutters. And so I had sort of come to this point where I was so terrified of talking to people. I mean, like, I would, just like not talk to people. I like couldn't go out to, events or to companies because I was so just, scared of stuttering. And so as a way to sort of overcome this fear that I had developed, I decided to pursue public speaking. And, I thought like I was going to give, a couple of talks on stuttering, and then I would be cured and I could go on with my life and things would be fine. And that is, it's definitely not exactly, how things played out. And so, I would give these talks where I would talk about stuttering as it compared to, different sort of scenarios in life. I talked about patience and, like those kinds of topics. And people would come up to me and say, hey, I really appreciated how you talked about empathy. And so I finally took the hint of like, okay, I don't think I'm talking about this, but that's what people are sort of getting, from the talks. And so because I was coming at things from a communications standpoint, I decided to focus on communicating from a place of incredible empathy. And that's how it was born.
That's so beautiful and inspiring. And,
Thank you.
for all of you joining from around the world, Sukhpreet from Kitchener, Ontario, Manasi from India, SP joining us from India, Tracy from Chicago. We're so happy to see you all. Maybe for you, the issue isn't stuttering. Maybe it's a different thing that you've grappled with that, kind of made you pull back and not interact or do some of those things that scare you. Talk
Absolutely.
about a way to reframe your situation. It's your superpower now. So, wow. I want to ask you, will you help us define empathy? I bet lots of people get it not quite right.
For sure. I think that a lot of people view it as sympathy. Like, oh no, like this person is going through something that's very challenging or sad, and you are like, wow, that's terrible. And then you kind of go on with your life. And so, I sort of define this as, sympathy is a passive thing. It's like, I feel bad. And that's all I'm going to do about it. And then I'm going to keep going. Whereas with empathy, you are trying to, just more deeply identify with this, person's current experiences, right? It's about, feeling the same, kinds of feelings that another person is going through. And so it truly is just a much more sincere kind of understanding what other people are going through in their own lives.
Yeah, very nicely put, right? When somebody is empathizing with you, you know it. You feel it, don't you? We all
Absolutely.
know when somebody's doing this for us, they are really imagining, right, what it's like to be in our shoes, in our position. I wonder if in some of your empathy work, if you notice differences around gender. This is a show where we look at issues, especially relating to women. Do you see that show up? Any differences?
You know what? I think that, and I'm not trying to bash anyone here. I think it's a lot easier for us as women to to identify with other women and their experiences, and I think that's for several different reasons. We take on a lot of the responsibilities, in our private lives, right? We are caregivers, we are, parents, we, take care of the home. And then beyond that, we have to deal with the same kinds of, good word here, I guess, is unpleasantness outside in the world, right? Like we all have had experiences where we have been put, in very uncomfortable situations by coworkers or by, family members or, or clients or bosses. I mean, I can't tell you, the times that, I have felt incredibly uncomfortable as a result of a thing that a counterpart has said to me, that's been based on something that doesn't have anything to do with, my sort of professional, capacity. And so all of us, us, we view, the other women as people who are fighting a very similar, day-to-day battle, because we have to deal with the same kinds of struggles. So essentially, I would say that we are a little bit more empathetic than men. That's
Getting
to your question.
You're getting lots of support emojis and likes for those insights you shared. And also, lots of folks are supporting Bob's great comment. Being concerned or empathetic is good business. People want to work with people who are more understanding. Well said, Bob. I agree with you. Something Anissa is asking is sometimes it's every person for themselves. How do you get people to more often think of others? Do you have any advice there?
A thing that I've been thinking about a ton is that, we bring our entire selves to every single situation that we, are a part of. And so we bring, all of us to our corporate lives. And I think a lot of people forget that, our coworkers are people too. And so, my goal here is to, try to sort of take into account that I don't have a ton of context on, what's going on in another person's life for them to behave the way that they are behaving. And so I'm a big fan of, transparency of like pulling a person to the side and just, having a very sincere conversation about like, hey, I've been seeing, these kinds of behaviors, and, I just want to know if things are okay. Do you feel comfortable in your role? Do you feel challenged? Do you feel concerned that, that are at risk of losing something if you aren't, the best, right? So I think that conversation is going to be the key. Well, conversation, communicating with empathy is going to be the key to sort of get people to not be so self-involved.
Yes, I love how thoughtful that approach was to talking to, another person and confronting another person. That relates perfectly to this question I have, which is you talk about positive communication being kind of a cornerstone of empathy. So what do you mean by positive communication?
So me, personally, I think it's important to approach things from, a positive position. And, I'm not always talking about like everything is going to be, sunshine and all of the good stuff. No, I mean that if we, form our sentences and our thoughts with, positive sort of communication, you are going to get, a lot further than you would if use more negative vocabulary. And so to break that down, let's say that you are talking to a person who is sort of, like not carrying their workload. Instead of saying, hey, you're failing, you could say like, okay, I see that there are some things that you were struggling to keep up with. Is there a thing that I can do to sort of assist you in, like improving upon those things that, are giving you some trouble? Does that make sense?
It does. And I think it's a great answer to Maud's question in a way. Like sometimes people behave badly. How do you deal with them? And look, the situation may not have changed. There may be bad behavior or, subpar performance or whatever the issue is. But you just laid out two very different roads to deal with it. We've all probably felt ridiculed or yelled at when we didn't do something right, right? Somebody didn't confront us in the most thoughtful way. And if we're lucky, maybe we've been on the other side and we've received more of what you just described. There's a big difference. And you're so much more motivated, aren't you, to go change it, to do better. I think when somebody's coming to you with that positive style. So I love what you laid out. I wanted to get to Kara's question. Oops, I'm sorry. Kara's question is, how do you think mindfulness practices being more available has played a part in people being more open to empathy?
I think that it forces people to just be a lot more thoughtful, just overall, right? So if people are very mindful, and they are, going out of their way to really connect with, like either themselves or with, the people or the planet or whatever it is. And so that is going to make people just a lot more sensitive to, everything that's going on surrounding them. And so being mindful is going to almost force you to be just a little more empathetic, because you are so focused on that connection piece just all the time anyway.
Yes. I mean, I don't know about the rest of you, but I know sometimes when I've made the worst decisions, or maybe I haven't come at something with empathy, it's because I'm going at a breakneck pace.
Absolutely.
I'm not really slowing down. I'm not really giving myself those pockets to pause for a minute and think, okay, what could the other person be going through? So I love your prompt for all of us. Is there a way you can just kind of pause or create a micro moment?
Yeah.
I love it.
People, like we, are constantly bombarded with just tons of stuff, right? There's Twitter, there's socials, there's Slack, there's phone calls, there's like all of these things that sort of, take our attention away from our current situation. And so we just have to intentionally sort of stop and just focus on the person, who's in front of us. And so, you know, put down your phone, turn off your computer screen for, a couple of seconds and just, focus on, who is there now.
Yes, amen to that. I think everybody needs that moment and that reminder. Tracy also wanted to share Sharon 100% agree going into it from a positive perspective. You can get better results and they will want to excel for you in the future when you bring that positive lens. Ain't that the truth? I want to get to something you brought up in your course, Sharon, that all of us are dealing with, and it's groups and teams, right? Teams are the new normal. How can you practice some of this empathetic communication in groups?
I think it's always good to sort of, have a guideline or a guidebook of things that, everybody on the team can agree on, like, the way we approach projects, or the way that we approach sort of talking in groups or in meetings or emails, right? Like, so the people on your teams all have to be comfortable with the way that you are communicating together in, every single, communications situation. And so it's always good to come together and sort of decide, like, the things that, are 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 effective, and things that just, aren't working, and, create plans around really amplifying the effective things, and sort of diminishing those behaviors that are very counterproductive for the group as a whole.
That's such a good idea. And I think there's even, more to that skill than just pointing it out. It almost requires us to be observant and watching, watching the room, the team dynamic for, like, what does work well for us? What does, seem like our commonalities that we can come together around? So I think for all of us, we can be watching and listening and looking for what helps this group, move forward so that we can suggest more of it. I think that's great. And I think you kind of answered Jahan's great question. Jahan's other great question. No, I'm sorry, it's Rohan's question. When there are clashes in thoughts or points of view on some subjects or topics, how do you deal with those effectively and politely? You've just shared some positive approaches, but is there anything else you'd recommend when there's out and out conflict? There is just tempers, flaring in a group?
Yeah, there's a couple of different things here, but the first one is that, we have to always keep in mind the why of every single interaction. And conflict comes about because we forget the point of the original conversation, right? And so it's important to sort of take a breath and take a deep breath. And if things get like too sort of spicy, then it's okay to just, like take like 20 minutes, calm down, and then come back together and really talk to each other in a very positive, communicative way, right? And so the positive communication and the transparency of the way that people are feeling is going to help you sort of get back to, the point of the conversation to begin with, right? So just always remember the why, and then speak with intention first, and then for impact second, right? Like we say a lot of things out of emotion, and those can be very impactful in either a very good way or a very bad way. And either way, it's always not the truth. And so if you speak with intention, then you are going to be a lot more measured in what you are saying and how it comes out.
Wow. So go back to your why, everybody. Go back to your why. What a great way to practice, intentionality in that conversation, so that you don't get lost in the emotions, which frankly is easy to do for most of us when, it's contentious or you feel like your territory's been, walked all over or whatever the issue is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Maud showing some support, saying you motivate us to do something great.
So I
People
like
really,
that.
yes, and people really liking the positive communication tactics that you're sharing with us. We have a tradition here of asking a final question, which is really, what's your parting truth bomb for us? When it comes to getting this empathetic communication thing right, what do you want to like tattoo on our brains, that we should really hold on to and practice?
That the things that you are feeling about what another person is feeling isn't always going to be true, right? Like we sort of view our okay, so we sort of hear, what people say, and we sort of filter it through this, like our opinion of the thing that they just said. And so I always want to remind people that just because a person says something, it doesn't mean you actually, like heard them and heard their feelings about it. And so it's always good to, just be very thoughtful about, paying attention and about reacting to, things that people say.
Yes, I can't think of a more appropriate time, right, for all of us to keep that in mind, right? Thank you so much, Sharon, for your super inspiring story and advice for all of us today. I know I've taken away that bringing that empathy, not making assumptions about others is kind of an antidote to a lot of the problems we deal with day to day. So all of us can make a difference, practicing this in our lives just a little bit more. In the show notes, everybody, you're going to see some links to stay in touch with Sharon, to check out her wonderful work on her website. If you're not already, follow her here on LinkedIn and on Twitter too, where you'll see a URL there. I hope you'll stay in touch with me too. Join my newsletter. It's a LinkedIn newsletter called Quick Confidence. It's 23,000 people strong, and you can get your weekly boost of confidence there and through my LinkedIn learning courses. I want to thank you again, Sharon. You're awesome. You are
Thank
a
you so much.
shining example of how to do this. And I want to thank this wonderful community for turning out today, for investing in yourselves. Remember, a little bit of empathy can change your world, your relationships in a big way. So stay well, everybody, and lead on.